So welcome to PPD number 5, last PPD of the 2-day workshop on the investment chapter. Before I call the speakers to the front, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Director General Saisana from the Foreign Trade Policy Department of MOIC. Welcome back, sir. And I'd like to invite one last time, Deborah Elms, surprise, surprise, Dr. Deborah Elms, to the front for the session 1 on setting the scene on the RCEP investment provision, as well as Thidavanh CHONGCHIT from the Department of Investment Promotion, Ministry of Planning and Investments. Please go ahead. Where is Mr. Thidavanh CHONGCHIT? She. Okay, again, where is Miss Thidavanh CHONGCHIT? Now that I have your gender right, you may proceed to the front. And since it's your first appearance on the PPD, allow me to introduce you, and then you can give an applause. So a few words about Ms. Thidavanh CHONGCHIT. So Ms. CHONGCHIT works at the Ministry of Planning and Investments, Investment Promotion Department since 2006 up to now, currently as a technical officer at the Investment Cooperation Division. Her main role and responsibility is on ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Investment, CCI in short. She participates in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership RCEP negotiation on the investment chapter, so you're highly qualified to be in this session 1, and contributed to negotiate other ASEAN FTA +1, such as the upgrade ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Area, the ASEAN Hong Kong FTA, the ASEAN China FTA, the preparation for the upcoming negotiation of the ASEAN Canada FTA in investment chapter in August 2022. So welcome to this session. And to get us knowledgeable with the same level of understanding on the chapter on investment, I'd like to invite Dr. Deborah Elms to take the floor one last time.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you very much. Just before, when we came in, we had the slide up that showed one of the 2 programs we're running for small businesses again. One is for women-owned exporters of goods. That program, mentorship program, gets underway very soon. And then the second one, in which I definitely need a bunch of Lao businesses, should be starting in October. And so I encourage you again, please, info@atc-foundation.org for more information, and I really do appreciate it. I said I would do that in exchange for having spent so long in front of you today. So appreciate any efforts you can give us in providing good small businesses. One program obviously is women only, because it's a women exporters program. This one can be of any gender and any age, but we do encourage especially the development of networks across the region with like-minded counterparts. This particular project is running, you can see, with Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Mongolia, and Thailand, countries determined by the funder now rather than by us, but it's okay because these are fantastic countries to work with. So any suggestions that you have of SMEs from those markets, please do reach out to us. We're really looking forward to recruiting for this project. Okay, thank you very much. And in the meantime, let me then go to my investment slides. I feel a little embarrassed, actually. We have the negotiator for investment. Hopefully I don't make any egregious mistakes, because she will actually know. You may not know, but she would know. Sorry, we're waiting on the slides for investment here. So while those are coming up, let me say that sort of broad overview on investment. Like the services negotiation, I think the advantage for me of the RCEP investment chapter is that this chapter from the beginning was very ambitious. because all of the participating governments recognize the importance of inbound investment, and all of the markets wanted to encourage inbound investment. So while some of the services commitments are complicated and confusing with the two different ways of scheduling, investment is consistent. And so that, I think, is great for investors, but also for the participating governments. So here we go. Same slide, 12 countries. Still waiting for the last 3. Hopefully they get their act together. Let me just note one more time here on this particular one is that there are a number of exceptions in the texts and schedules, including for Lao. So do read them carefully if you are intending to use them. And in particular, I would say, because I'll talk about this in a second, but we have negative listing in investment and then in part of the services schedules. Some governments sometimes put weird things together in their schedules. So I would encourage you to not do a find on your computer and look for a specific word, because it sometimes will be labeled something else and you'll miss it, or there'll be a fairly sweeping restriction that you won't notice because you Googled bookkeeping, right? You searched for bookkeeping, and actually the restriction is on land ownership. So if you had intended to invest by buying a facility to do bookkeeping, you would be in trouble because it's not included. There's a restriction, and you might not notice that. So please do read the text and the schedules in the places that are of interest to you for investment. Okay, so let me just say, why do we care about this? Well, we care about foreign investment because most governments have seen strong development payoff from having foreign investment. Foreign investors are assumed to provide direct economic benefits because they invest, but also because they help spur domestic innovation, domestic technology transfer, domestic skills transfer. They build that sort of experience with working with foreign firms that then often go start rival companies domestically, that it increases the competition domestically, and helps, again, sort of build skills up. So most of Asia, not everywhere in the world, but certainly in Asia, governments have been enthusiastic about the power of foreign direct investment to drive economic development. And you see that reflected in the RCEP discussions because the members were largely very enthusiastic. Either they are already themselves big foreign investor outsource with lots of outbound investment, or they have done well attracting inbound foreign investment. So we had lots of experience with FDI in the space. And so in a chapter, what are you trying to do? So a chapter in a trade agreement tries to do a couple of things. The most important one is to create favorable investment conditions, to make it attractive for an investor to come in. And in particular, foreign investors like to receive what's called national treatment, which says, I will treat you, foreign firm, the same way I treat domestic firms. That's important because otherwise they discriminate against you and you have difficulties with your investments. So give me national treatment as an RCEP firm in these markets. They also are important because they provide better certainty about what the rules will and will not be, including things like the ability to transfer capital and profits related to your investments in and out of the country as seamlessly as possible, that the rules are as transparent as they can be, that the regulations and policies are clear and explained in advance, all of which helps lower the risk for investors, that if they come and they invest in your market, you will treat them fairly and you will provide some kind of policy consistency. Similar to the services chapter, many investment chapters, including in RCEP, have performance requirements, and you want to define clearly what those performance requirement rules are. In particular, there's a lot of performance requirements that we find about What do you need to do to invest? You can invest, but only if you export. You can invest, but only if you use local labor. You can invest, but only if you export and use local labor. So the agreement will specify what those rules are, if any. And then it will also protect your investments. So once you've gone into the market, what do we do to protect your investments? The worry in a trade agreement is not that you will lose money as an investor. Government doesn't care, frankly, if you lose money, that's your problem. But what they do agree to do usually is government actions related to an investment need to be regulated. And in particular, what are we worried about? We are worried about something called expropriation, which is when the government comes in and seizes your investment. And then crucially, so they seize your investment and they fail to fairly compensate you for that investment. So let me just describe what this looks like, because it's actually quite important. You can set up a tea shop as an investment. The government has the right, because again, the government has to regulate on behalf of its citizens. The government has the right to say, this tea shop is where we intend to build an important road. And we, the government, will come and expropriate or take your tea shop because we're going to put a road here. But they are then meant to fairly compensate you for the loss of your business. So they can take your tea shop, but they are supposed to compensate you. Now, the challenge we often have for foreign investors is what happens if the government doesn't follow these rules, if they seize your property and they don't compensate you fairly. Like any investor, you have the ability to sue the government in the local court system. But you can imagine across much of this region that local court system might not look at a foreign investor fairly when ruling against their own government. So for many foreign investors, this is a less than desirable way to handle a dispute, because if the government seizes your assets, gives you no compensation or says, here's $1 for your troubles, for your $10 million piece of property, and then you're going to sue them in the local court system and have them rule in favor of the government. That is not helpful. So typically in a trade deal, we have another way for foreign investors to protect themselves against this specific problem, seizure compensation, which is called usually the Investor Dispute Settlement Mechanism, ISDS. So most trade agreements have some mechanism that foreign investors can use, foreign meaning those covered by this deal. So in the case of RCEP, not European investors, not American investors, but investors from RCEP, when the government seizes unfairly your property and fails to compensate you. So ISDS. You will see in just a second, we do not have that yet in RCEP. But the idea is there. The idea in general is if you have your assets seized, you will want to have compensation, and you will want to have a mechanism that will look on this with at least more fair eyes than a potential local court system. And the overall point of all of these elements is to make a fairer, stronger, more predictable, less risky environment for investors. And the idea then is that because you've done that, investors will come. Investors would like to come where they can know the rules, where it's predictable, where it's stable, where they can make money. Okay, so that's what we're trying to accomplish. Now, how did we do in RCEP? The good news is we got halfway there, or partway there. Okay, in RCEP, the chapter, half of it is actually, the definitions are a big part of it. So it will define who are investors, who's a covered investor, what's a covered investment. So if you have any questions about whether or not your particular investment is or is not covered, please look at the chapter. Then it goes through specific investment commitments that members have made. You can see that in the Annex 3 requirements. And then again, carefully review our text. And then Like with lots of things, investment is in lots of areas, in goods and services. There could be investment relations in intellectual property, et cetera. So you have to look at throughout the whole agreement, so not just that particular chapter. All of the schedules for investment use that negative list approach. All of them. So every one of the members said, I will tell you where you are not allowed to invest. If you don't see a restriction, you can invest in that space. Okay, so they all had negative lists. Now there is two parts to this list, which I'll just mention briefly. The first part, what's called List A, might change in the future. And List B is not going to change in the future. So you can imagine governments put all the super sensitive stuff in List B and some of the slightly less sensitive but still sensitive stuff in List A. So as you're looking through here, you need to know what is restricted List A, where I might have hope of changes in the future, and what is a covered List B, I am never going to see that kind of investment. Here we go. Okay, so what did they actually get in RCEP? They received national treatment. National treatment, I will not discriminate against you, especially with, as you can see how long this is, establishment, acquisition, expansion, management, conduct, operation, and sale or other disposition of investments into the territory. This is a chapter where the lawyers love this chapter. So this chapter is particularly legal. They also received what's called most favored nation treatment, which is you give the same treatment as other investors, but note that there are exceptions here for Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam to this national treatment. So it was mentioned earlier today that this exception exists in place. There is something that lawyers love called a minimum standard of treatment. You can read all about it in the document. And there is a rule that says that you can expropriate only for public purposes, without discrimination, with prompt compensation, and due process of law. So there is a whole long discussion about expropriation. Again, government is allowed for public purposes, but only then, and there's a whole long description of that. There are, however, a bunch of exceptions, which you should also look at if you are an investor. You can transfer your money as an investor without a delay. There are, and I think this is another key one for a lot of investors, there are a set of prohibited actions that the government may not require as a condition for investment, and I'll talk about them in just a second in more detail, but that matters. There are no restrictions now on senior management. There may be, if they're scheduled, if they're written down, restrictions on directors or boards, as long as it allows the investor to have control of the investment. So these are some important restrictions for this region because many governments make it difficult for you to manage your own investment in specific markets. There are lots of excluded provisions here in Laos. They were less enthusiastic about automatic coverage. And as always, there are regular ongoing exceptions available throughout the agreement for public health, safety, national security, et cetera. Okay, so let me just show you quickly, and again, you can have the slides later. These are prohibited performance requirements. So governments in RCEP may no longer require an investor to export a certain amount or percentage of goods. They may no longer require an investor to have a certain level or percentage of domestic content. They may no longer require domestic content in the preference of goods. They may no longer have the rate and value of imports, this sort of ratio thing that we had often in this region earlier. You can't require technology transfers. Note that Cambodia is exempt on this one. You may not require exclusive party suppliers. And you may not have, there's a long description here about royalties and license contracts. So if that applies to you, please read that in more detail, but note that Lao is exempt from this restriction. So in short, there are lots of things that governments used to do as a condition of investment that they have now said, we will not do that anymore. And the main reason for that, let me just say this because people always ask me, why would I do that? Basically, when you require an investor, for example, to export a certain percentage of goods, you are asking an investor to do something that does not make economic sense. Because if it made economic sense, the investor would export. So you're asking an investor to come in and forego part of the money that they would otherwise make by following these kinds of rules. And in RCEP, the governments have said, actually, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's make conditions that foster investment. Let's think our eyes on the prize here. What do we want? We want investment. We do not want to make it difficult for investors. So let's get rid of all of that other stuff. This is what the schedule looks like. This I find interesting, frankly, because it's a weird restriction on playing cards for Thailand. I don't know if any of you ever tried to invest in playing cards in Thailand, but it turns out you cannot. And you cannot, just like with the services schedule, right? The top is what's the sector? Manufacturing. The next one is what is the thing? Playing cards. They are going to tell you, what am I going to not do? I am not following national treatment, and I am not following the rules on senior management. And the rule is here. No natural person or juridical person, legal terms for people, can produce or import playing cards without the approval from the Director General of the Excise Department based on a 1943 law. So if you wanted to invest in playing cards or import in playing cards to Thailand, you may not do so. They told you can't be done. So that's what they look like. You can go through and you can read every country's exceptions and you will have a sense. Now this is list A. Remember I said list A might change in the future. So maybe Thailand will change this 1943 law at some point. List B, which I think I have here. Yes, here's a list B. This is a very sweeping exception that is going to capture a lot of unhappy investors, because look what it says. All sectors, every possible investment sector, they're going to violate 3 rules: national treatment, performance requirements, prohibition, and senior management, with this incredibly sweeping statement that says, Thailand reserves the right to adopt or maintain any measure with respect to an investor or an investment relating to environment, health, or culture. I mean, if I was really difficult, I could define everything as somehow related to the environment, health, or culture. So that is a tricky, very sweeping exception for Thailand. List B, not going to change. So there are lots of these kinds of big sweeping restrictions in RCEP. So again, as an investor, make sure you read the details very carefully. And then I think I'm almost done. I want to do this last bit. So RCEP then gives you the conditions for market access. It tells you what is the kind of treatment you're going to get when you're there. And usually at the end, we have investment protection. RCEP, however, had a problem, which is most of the way through the negotiations, when they were nearly done, after they had actually spent a lot of time, I'm sure you must have spent a lot of time, negotiating investment protection, one of the members said, we can no longer agree to that. So they put it on ice. They took that whole section and put it away and said, we will now think about our investor protection mechanism in 2 years. In other words, at the end of next year, we're supposed to start discussions and conclude it within 3 years after that. So 4-ish years from now, there should be some kind of investor protection mechanism in RCEP. So we don't have it yet in RCEP. We may have it soon, or we may have another 4 years and plus before you have investment protection. Remember that the investment protection is about this very specific kind of investment protection, from expropriation and failure to compensate. And in practice, I will say, because everyone's always nervous about this, no firm is ever going to sue a government unless they intend to never do business in that market again. Because it's difficult, it's expensive, and once you've been sued as a government, you are not favorably disposed to this firm in the future. So you only use this dispute mechanism if it's a really big deal. If it's a very big fixed asset investment like a mine, then you might do this. But even there, we find a lot of firms who could use investor protection not doing so because they hope that someday they'll keep working with the government. So we don't have investment protection. I always describe it as an insurance policy. It's less about being able to sue the government. It's more about the government committing not to seize your assets without compensation. And so right now in RCEP, we don't have it, but hopefully we will have it as scheduled in the few years. So investment protection coming. So we have all that other stuff. Protection is on its way. So overall, in short, on investment, and again, I'm sure you'll get this in much more detail from someone who was there, ambition by the members to try to encourage inbound investment with certain restrictions in place, and a little bit more detail forthcoming as we think about how do we protect investors against expropriation in particular. So I think it's a very good chapter, does a lot of ambitious things, has some missing pieces, especially for Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. So please do read that carefully if you plan to invest in those markets. But otherwise, I think it sets a position for more investment across this region over time. So thank you.
Thank you. You kept the easiest for the end, I see. Yeah. We are fresh after 2 days to discuss investment matters. But luckily, we have someone who participated in not only the RCEP negotiation, but also other FTA negotiation on investment. So we are very happy and lucky to invite Miss Thidavanh CHONGCHIT to take us through her presentations on the content of the investment chapter and how did we get to that point.
And now is that?
Good afternoon. This is going to be a last session. I hope everybody will bear with me, as Mr. Nongchit said. Allow me to introduce myself, Thidavanh CHONGCHIT, from Investment Promotion Department. I will tell you a little bit on the RCEP agreement in the investment chapter. Moving forward to a little bit on investment in our country. I hope you will pay attention to. If you have any questions, anything you want to share, just feel free to at the Q&A session. Right.
สั้นเฮาสิมาเข้าเกี่ยวกับภาพรวมก่อนเนาะของสัญญา
I'm going to move on to the overview of RCEP. Dr. Deborah already mentioned the RCEP. RCEP, what provision is stipulated in the RCEP, the importance of the text of the agreement itself. I think it's very detailed. It's already covered. So I think I'm going to start from the overview of what RCEP is. What agreement is it? We can call it easy, This agreement is ASEAN agreement and negotiating parties of RCEP, the 6 countries, with the objective of creating this agreement is for economic cooperation, modern agreements, quality, comprehensive, and providing mutual benefits, aiming at expanding the trade investment in the regions and to support the growth of the global economy. That will bring in, markets, access, employment opportunities, especially people in the regions. This agreement, RCEP has endorsed by 15 countries on 15 November 2020. In RCEP, there are 20 chapters. Number 10 is investment. Mainly RCEP, it's to open up in investment environment to facilitate regional competitions by negotiating investment. It covers four main pillars. One is promotion, protection, facilitation, open up investment. So the RCEP in investment chapters, the key thing is that to identify the regulation policy to promote and protect the investment without discrimination, to ensure the protection system. At the same time, it protect the government and provide government rights to achieve its policy on the fair manner. In terms of facilitation, open up, it's aiming at to transparency and permitted investment permission procedures. The text of RCEP, there are 18 parts of the investment and the answer annexes. So Deborah already covered the investment part, investment chapter. It's using negative list approach. In Lao we call it control list. Whatever is not open, we have to use this list, negative list, including the services in chapter 3. It's also covered in chapter 3 services, but in developing a negative list approach, in other words, a closed list, Mr. Nongchit said, it's quite difficult because it's quite modern for foreigners. It's going to be easy because they develop country, they have a broad measure, identify which sector they have, what requirements. They put that quite clear for Lao Peter. It's quite difficult because, as I said, we are now improving our regulation. That means, for example, this term, there may be improve on this one, maybe moving forward or maybe moving backwards, like in RCEP. In Annex 1, Annex 2, Annex 1 means that is a measure. Annex 1 is a measure that we already have it. We can improve it. How to improve? As mentioned by Deborah earlier, we can improve it by moving up, because Annex 1 and Annex List A. What is ratchet? Ratchet's mechanism is a mechanism is moving forward, not backward. If a government, let's say government identify regulation and rules, for example, government allow foreign to invest in this activity 30%, for example. In the case of the government improve the regulation, government will have to revise that. Whether is it still 30%? Government will have to allow 40, 50%. If the government reduce under 30%, it's going to be you breaching the applications under Rajah's applications. This is quite difficult for government as well. That's why when we improve internal regulation of the government, we need to also count on international application, because like I said, this application or commitment, we have to follow the sector law as well. For list 2 is a different measure. It's overlook measure or policy space. We're going to put in here. In fact, Lao Peter have submitted list 1 and list 2. I have not brought the example, but you've been shown the Thailand example. Lao PDR, we have not submit list like positive. Lao PDR, based on the investment commercial law and the sectoral law, sector concern law, meaning government allow investor to invest in our sector that is not touching over the national security, would have caused a negative impact on environments and the culture. That means we open up implementation, will be based on the law, domestic law of the sector concerns, when they invest.
ซึ่งเงื่อนไขสำคัญในการเจร
The
จา
key context for negotiation in this investment, usually it identify the application in national treatment. So national treatment so that whatever we provide, we treat the national investor, domestic investor, we treat the foreign investor same way. The second one
เอาตัวที่สองค่ะและเป็น MFN
is MFN,
ก็คือเสื่อสารได้
as already explained by our expert.
มียกเว้นนั่นน่ะได้
There will be exception.
นโยบายผ่อนผันในการปฏิบัติ
So most favored nation is something you receive. FMN is at the usually like you get special preferences. The third one is at PPR.
ในการปฏิบัติงานของผู้ลงทุน
PPR, like that means that we cannot call the investor to follow the government's requirements. For example, it's a list of
มีข้อใดๆที่ว่าเราบ่สามารถเฮ็ดได้
the things that we could not do it. I think this is relating to TRIM in WTO, but TRIM in WTO, it's only include element 1 to E, but in RCEP framework, because the modern agreement is had 11 plus PPR plus 11. So that will be more advancing. So in negotiation as the least developed countries, we can we receive the policy not to implement the PPR obligations or commitment for transfer technologies and royalty. What do you mean by that? Why we request flexibility from this commitment? Because Lao is a least developed country status, and we only receive investment if the government, if it prohibit government to recall for investment relating to technology transfer. When we invest in other countries, do not require. When they come in, we still want the investor to transfer technologies and skilled labor transfer. Because Lao is development. This is a good thing. We still receive this policy, but one day in the future, when Lao is graduated from this country, there will be challenge. We need to be prepared because we cannot request on this. But in the agreement, it doesn't mention that after you graduated, this application will automatically apply or not. There may be some kind of review on that. Another important one is that it's appropriations of the investor. For example, she mentioned that you set up a tea shop. If government would use that space, for some kind of infrastructure, government will have to compensate them. Another one is a transfer of transfer of the money on the free manner, but there's some exception, because there's an IMF regulation that I think freely transaction. It is relating to the freely transactions. That means the control of influx or outflux, of the money, because it touched on the national the balance things, balance of payment. Like I said, there's an article on non-conforming measure in Annex 1 and Annex 2, that is negative list approach.
อีกอันหนึ่งก็คือ
Another one is it's already covered by our expert on ISDS, is how the investor can sue the government. So again, this is still it's a key articles, important articles in this. The investment chapter could still not negotiate it, so that will be discussed again after the agreements. The next 2 years after this agreement has been ratified, because this agreement has been ratified last year.
discussion
or this year. I think this topic will be discussed in January 2023. I think it's quite challenging. ISDS, there will be mechanism that are related to many obligations. It's quite challenging, the government will need to pay attention to, because another one is that because RCEP agreement identify international negotiator, with transfer under the national arbitration, including international arbitration body. We're not the member of existing. In the case that the person, no, the company who sue government, the member of the exist, they can sue the government through this mechanism. By this mechanism, I think it would also build. I think the two things to look at, one way is that you build up the confidence for investor, but for government, that may not be as good enough. So, I mean, the sector concerned would probably look at that. I think there will be start negotiation next month. That's roughly on that. Now look at the conclusion. We're wasting time for negotiation, many rounds, 2 years. What are the benefits of putting into effort into the negotiation? And this agreement, a lot of you may know that one is that it builds confidence for foreign investor to invest in the regions, including Lao PRA, in helping support. It's a tool to attract the investment, especially in the regions, and we hope that there will be influx of new fund, and the profit will be used to invest in sustainably. And in terms of market access and the capital fund, I mean, for the Lao businesses, to the areas of employment, knowledge transfer, technology transfer, when they have FDI coming to Lao. These are the benefits we will get. We still get the benefits because Lao has LDC status. We still get flexibility provisions. In addition, it will facilitate, in terms of production and value chain, supply chains to the region, that would probably boost the Lao trade environments in the future. Another one is that it provides opportunity for new business for Lao and for investor. For Lao investor to probably expand the operation into the regions. There may be an opportunity to upgrade the quality of production of existing product, of potential products, so that it could be be competitive in the regions. Since we have the 2016 revised investment promotion laws, it allows Lao business to expand its investment in the country. Now we have 4 Lao investor in another country: Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So we have 4 countries that Laos, business can invest their investment in these 4 countries. Now we look at the challenges. The challenges, what do you mean by that? So in liberalizations of the investments, it provides more facilitation for investment. It will kind of help boost investment among private sector. Like I said, the government, for government investment, meaning government would easily provide licenses. Government will have to facilitate the investment by having more to ease restrictions in terms of giving permission in order to invest in foreign investor.
อันนี้ค่ะมันติดพันกับภาครัฐเนาะซึ่งว่าปัจจุบันมันกระทรวงแผนการ
At the moment, MPI, Ministry of Planning and Investment. So representing the government is MPI because we in charge of improvements of economic of doing business, ease of doing business, in which the World Bank have not yet even organized the ranking. But Lao PRA, we still need to improve, like domestic ease of doing investment in Lao PRA. in addition, I just said that the second challenges would be that in the case that when Lao is graduated from LDC, I think we have to prepare to fully implement the application. But again, before that, we need to review the agreements, provisions of the agreement. That's why it's quite challenging for the government and our government official who would continue to work on the RCEP in the future. I said earlier, the ISDS, to identify ISDS, to build confidence for investor. On one hand, is that it's like we're creating something. We create some, I would not say trap, but I would say is some type pressure for the government as well, for ISDS. The two kids, for example, like it's not from FTA, but it's from bilateral agreements, bilateral investment treaty, that the party to contracts, they sue government through this contract, through this agreement. That's why in negotiation of the different articles of ISDS, we will have to be based on that one. So we will see like whether we can improve. Nevertheless, we have to accept some of the articles, especially the provisions or the commitment in those articles. And roughly, from me. Thank you for your attention.
I haven't said anything yet. You already have your hand up in the air. But actually, somebody beat you online. There's already a question online for our two speakers. So thank you, Deborah, and speaker from Thidavanh. I think by tomorrow I'll remember all the names of all the speakers. I have a question. I'm not sure which one of you could respond to that, because I don't think you've mentioned it in your presentation. One of the questions from Mr. Pokham is how can RCEP help its members to promote new venture capital or investment in startup in Lao PDR? So is venture capital is investment in startup considered specifically in the agreement on the chapter on investment?
Thank you for the question. This is quite a difficult question. Based on the RCEP agreement, like I said, the text of the agreement is to promote open up investment that will facilitate investment. How to promote it? International community recognize that RCEP is made for the region. That's why Lao is one of the regional countries, where we welcome investment of foreign from foreign country anyways. In doing business here, we do have regulation, domestic regulation, to facilitate the setup of investment through the one-stop service where we have at the moment. Is based on the investment promotion law. We have the one-stop service unit at the Ministry of at MPI and one-stop service at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. And that's why I would say investor can access information through electronic information, or they can physically walk to our one-stop service unit, because in one-stop service, we could accommodate investor who are interested in to invest in Lao.
Deborah, you would like to add something to the answer?
I would just make it very brief. No, there's nothing on.
ก็คือว่าจะบ่มีอย่างเกี่ยวกับตัวบ่รวมแล้วหมายความว่า RCEP เนี่ยนะ บ่เว้าเรื่องมันบ่ได้เว้าเรื่องการส่งเสริมการลงทุนหมายความว่าหรือว่าแรงจูงใจที่รัฐบาลจะให้และแผนงานที่ว่ารัฐบาลจะให้เพื่อเป็นการตกสุกอยู่เนาะให้นักลงทุนกลับมาลงทุนเนาะมันจะบ่มีอีหยังแบบนั้นเนาะบ่มีข้อกำหนดไว้ว่าบ่ให้ยังบ่มีสัญญาณที่บอกว่าเขาจะคุ้มครองกันใดๆเนาะแต่ว่ามันอาจจะมีเหตุผลเนาะที่จะเฮ็ดได้เนาะในบางครั้งเพราะว่ารัฐบาลบางประเทศอาจจะมีเงินในการที่จะลงใส่นักลงทุนบ่ครับเจ้าก็คาดคะเนได้อยู่ดอกว่ามันจะเป็นปัญหาแต่ปัจจุบันนี้ยังบ่ได้เว้าเนาะบ่ได้เว้าอยู่ในเรื่องการส่งเสริมการลงทุนและอยู่ในสัญญา RCEP นี่บ่มีเด้อขอบใจ
Oh, check. Yeah, my question is for basically what we do is we bring in businesses from Singapore, Malaysia, and India, and we're bringing them to Laos. While checking out the current investment laws, the market entry barrier is quite high for these businesses. So what the businesses have done is they have flipped everything around. They said, find me investors in Laos to put the money into the business, and we will bring the technology, the know-how, the people. They've flipped the entire, entry into Laos. Because what we are trying to talk to them is, no, we want you to bring the investment. I want you to bring the FDI and the technology and everything so that we can develop the capacity and the environment in Laos. That's our goal. But because of current investment rules and regulations, there's a big barrier up right now for businesses to enter into Laos. So my question is basically are there any plans to change current FDI in Laos? If yes, when? If no, is there anything we can do to help facilitate the change?
Very familiar with these questions and also hard question as well. Thank you so much. Exactly for the barriers of investment, many people also come with this one, but due to the government side, we are also pay attention on that concerning to the relevant laws and regulations from the license agency. So now the government also improve or revise its law and regulations. That's why I inform you now that we already revised our investment promotion law, and the government's its mandates for the license agency as well. So additional laws to be revised will be laws on mining, law on land as well, and now the entry into considerations of the parliaments will be the laws on the enterprise, yes, and also the laws for the internal tribunal, I think, yes, entry into the considerations and approval by the government. So that's why this thing, all the improvements will be the government's. It means there are reforms the law and regulations itself, so to improve and attract more the business development in our countries. Thank you.
When can we expect it?
Exactly now the law on investment promotion is we cannot tell the exact date, but within this year we will have we will see the signal from them. Yes, so I think the change the laws this time we will have something new, and where I think will be better than the previous law. Exactly, you will see and surprise, but I cannot tell you now. Thank you.
Still 4 months to go.
Yes, of course, because it's concerned to the investment treatment. So that's why the laws will be changed for this particularly in order to facilitate investments.
Thank you. I will take one last question from the gentleman in the front. Can we have the microphone, please? Yeah.
Good afternoon once again. I'd like to ask one question to Thidavanh. You already presented, right? The challenges, our challenges. I think at present time, Lao people, democratic Lao people is the least developed country, and the signing of investment, there's some of them, allow exception according to the requirement of LDC, least developed country. Next.
Hello. Thank you. ต่อไป
I think next Lao would graduate from LDC. That means everyone, everyone would be ready, but would be prepared. But the ministry concerned, what do related sector prepare if the rules are more strictened? And how many areas we have to prepare? What is your preparation? In your challenges, I saw that some of them, how many areas in terms of personnel, for example, what do you prepare, the substance? I think talking about time frame is not that long or too short, What do you think about that? What kind of preparations, you have for once Lao graduate from LDC? Thank you very much for the question. That's a very good question. On the government side, government have a big thinking as well, especially MPI as the negotiating party for the chapter of investment for each international agreement. Every agreement that Lao has endorsed or signed, it taken to force after the signing. We have conducted the study like this one. We look at some of the challenges that we need assistance. We propose support from international organization. That's how we prepare. Secondly, we prepare in terms of regulation. That's mean we have to reform. We have to review and reform our existing regulation and law. For example, like nowadays, we are amending the investment promotion law and related law, like the law on mining and lands. It doesn't mean that our ministry alone will amend that. I think that we may represent the government to sign the agreement, and we have to provide the government. Government would provide some kind of direction and supervise us, and what to do next. So this is our preparation. In terms of personnel, because some of the agreement, it took a long time. In fact, I'm not lead in the investment. My lead is another person. Now he's been promoted to be DDG, Director General of the departments. But I think it's challenging for me because I was not originally involved. But again, like I said, to continue, we need to call on someone who have done before, who understand the issue. We are training on that as well. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. เจ้าสบายดีตอนบ่ายเนาะ
Good afternoon. Allow me to comment, just to add on Thidavanh that already explained some, that what Lao Pida should prepare once Lao graduate from LDC status. So what kind of preparation we have to, because the period that Lao will graduate from LDC, I think 2026, we have transition period from 3 to 5 years. At the beginning, at first, government recognized that. So not that long, Lao will become will graduate itself from least developed countries list. In terms of readiness, we have conducted what we call integrated study. One of them is thinking about that Lao will not get any flexibility, or Lao will not get any preferences, GSP or whatever. How would we prepare? That's why this study would be a basis for us, because this study will cover many sectors, not only investment sector, the trade service sector and other, that we used to benefit from LDC. From now on, we're not going to get it anymore. That's why this study will identify where our readiness be, and where are we now, and what do we have to improve it. So this study, like I said, will be a tool, a guiding tool for us to set on the future. I mean, we've been helped by the expert on doing this study. So after having that kind of results of the study, we would be able to disseminate that. And because of the policy, including improvements, amendments of the investment promotion law, as you mentioned, and other law as well, how are we going to improve it or amend it? This is one of the activities. Like I said, we will base on the study. That's something I like to add.
Thank you. That's very useful precisions, and looking forward to seeing the study. Well, with this, I'd like to thank the two of you, Thidavanh, now I got it right, and Deborah, for sharing your knowledge and expertise on this investment chapter. So, job well done. And we are finally moving to the session you're all expecting, you're all waiting for, the last session of the last dialogue, which is the private sector perspective on investment and investment climate and investment chapter. So for this final session, I would like to invite to the front Mr. Thi Chi Seng and Mr. Sivat Sengduan-Chan, please join me on the panel. So first of all, I'd like to introduce our two speakers for this session, who are representing the private sector. Mr. Thi Chi Seng, General Manager cum Board of Director of Savan Pacifica Development Co. Limited, Savan Park SEZ, formerly worked with Tenaga National Berat of Malaysia, National Electric Board, for 12 consecutive years. In year 2007, with the opportunity to come to Laos to study the opportunity of investment. In the year 2008, he was appointed as a Board of Director and General Manager of Savan Pacifica Development Co. Limited, Savan Park SEZ, one of the developers of the Savan Seno Special Economic Zone at Savannakhet Province. He was also appointed as Vice President to manage the property development of the Vientiane Logistics Park at the Vientiane capital here. Welcome, sir. To my immediate left, I have Mr. Sivat Sengduan-Chan, who is a lawyer specialized in business, trade, and investment laws. He's the Managing Director of Sivat and Associates Sold Company Limited, mediator and arbitrator of the Center for Economic Dispute Resolution of Laos, and the Office for Economic Dispute Resolution of Vientiane Capital, the sole practitioner, arbitrator, moderator, agent and broker, and he's a member of a number of associations and chambers here, like the LNCCI, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Australia and New Zealand, EU Chamber of Commerce and Industry, American Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Lao PDR. So welcome, gentlemen. So I have, like in other PPDs, I have a few questions to you, and then we'll take a question from our online participants, if we still have, yeah, and from our audience. So first question to you, Mr. Thi Chi Seng. So we've heard you have experience to invest in Laos, originally from Malaysia, as I understand. So you've heard about the RCEP investment chapter. How do you think this RCEP investment chapter could change opportunities for LNCCI members, for instance, in promoting more investment into Lao PDR? How can you, as an experienced investor, promote investment into Lao PDR?
Okay, it's a good question. So, in English or Lao, it's okay, right? Because so long in Laos, so speak Lao. So actually, for FDI, for to Laos, this is the right time for Laos. Actually, I'm here more than 12 years. So now we are going to the new era for Lao PDR. And since the last 5 years and until now, a lot of things changes. Before we came in a huge opportunity. Okay, now since the governments take the effort to have I don't see it to environment, it to improve the business environment. So since then, so the government itself locally, the local government is in a good approach to foreign investment to Laos. That's first thing. The second thing, like RCEP, there's another open up to get the surrounding, which we have 30% of the world market will be here. So there is a key awareness to the investment to flow into Laos. Because until today, I can say CLMV, we take out C, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. So we forget about Myanmar now. So we talk about Cambodia and Laos. Laos still have a lower cost initial investment. So that is attractive for the Laos. I don't say it's a low cost for labor. No, I never say Laos is low cost labor. No, we have to have a reasonable price for our labor. My opinion is we have to go for a quality investment and sustainable. That's our key in Laos. Laos is only 7 million people. We don't hurry to go for the quantity. And today, right, you say about 1.3 million. Yeah, it's a good amount, but it's not enough. That is a level entry. We are not talking about that. We're talking about a job opportunity and job career. Now we are straight here is job career. Why RCEP is believed to Laos for the investment? In case, like me, we have a small factory. But now with RCEP, people will look, hey, guys, I bring the machine to you. You have your building. You have your facility. We have a green electric. So we can do the production here. Because now, I think RCEP will change the Prohibited Agreement before. We have a local contents. Now, no need. Now we just bring a machine, bring the know-how, then you can produce. They will create another view, we will create add value to the existing factory in Laos. It's add value. Okay, and then from that, we can see we have to get the anchor tenant. We get anchor tenant means we get a big factory in. So they will create other small supply chain downstream business. Now we are talking about the opportunity for the Laos downstream business for Laos. Because Laos we have, I can say it's about 90% SMB. So it's suitable for downstream. Currently, the investment in Laos is we are the downstream business like Thai +1 or Vietnam +1 or China +1. But since this RCEP come, it's a time for Laos to recruit the anchor tenant first. Then we have a downstream for Lao PDR. Thank you.
All right. So you've convinced me to come to Laos and explore for investment. But let's say I come here, start to invest. Then what are the main challenges or loophole in the investment climate that you keep hearing about? As LNCCI here, there is no other foreign investors, so we are within friends and within the family. So what are still the challenges? Is it promotion, aftercare, access to informations, access to suppliers? What are the challenges?
For FDI to Lao, but Lao is very good. We have a special economic zone, okay, which is more than 20 years. And then we have a development zone. And then we have few layers, okay. So what I mean is here is today, governments have a good information to allow you to have a business. You see, for FDI law, all right, it's a protection to the investor. Okay, of course, like us, we have to FDI to here. We go to where? If you want to get easy access, you go to special zone. Why we encourage go special zone? Because all the infrastructure in place, all the legal framework in place, and then all the investment process is transparent. Okay, in transparent process is there and compliant is there. If you want to go for the common area, Of course, the price of investment, the initial investment go to special zone and common area is quite different because you already use a people facility. If you want to go for the own, go for low cost by your own, of course you have to go to the local relevant authority. You have to go to 10 departments. It's very common in every country, not only in Laos. No blame in Laos. There is a governance at every country the same. Okay, and then since they investment in, we also have a lot of investment firm in Laos. Okay, of course you cannot go through your friend. You have to go the proper channel. I can talk to you. If you enough, you sincerely want to invest in Laos, I think the Deputy Prime Minister of Laos or Minister of Commerce in Laos, Minister of Planning Investment in Laos, you just want to know, guys, I want to invest. You can't see for any country. That is a high level commitment to the big investment. No problem. That is the thing I can tell you is you can access to government, you can access to business like NCCI, and you can access to customer. What do you mean customer? Your supplier. I don't think it's a big problem now. The thing is now you want or no one invest on it. Don't give the reason to say that always get to the people, but you are not ready to invest.
Right. So the investor to come to you, they don't come with issue or challenges. So maybe they come to Mr. Sivat and say, Mr. Sivat, I'd like to invest in our PDR, but I heard about taxation. I heard about governance. I heard about difficulty to register my business. So what are the advice they look for or they come to you for in terms of starting their business here, investing in our PDR?
As a consultant, and advisor, I think that in Laos, you see that RCEP is very new for many people. But when we are talking about investment, we start far before this, all right? Because in Laos, in the past, people can have direct concession agreement with the government. In Laos, if you are talking about RCEP, it's found under the area of what's so-called private international law, all right? In Laos, even Lao local law allow you to choose language of contract, forum of dispute resolution, and place of arbitration. Our colleague, just say that RCEP, we have problem to negotiate this, but in Lao law, we far ahead of that, all right? The party can sign concession agreement that to choose English as governing language, all right? You know that, all right? English law as law of arbitration and forum in ICC in Paris. I think that I agree with him, if you are talking about foreign investor, they are well promoted. As long as you prepare to invest, please don't come to get license and stay, and then just waiting to sell the license, or sometimes we call, trading license or trading project. That's what the government would not want to see. I'm Lao person as well, and I also have joint venture with foreign company. And I always say that it would be better for me, to have foreign partner. Then I can use RCEP, that I can use bilateral agreement to protect my investment. That's how I feel.
Right. So what about those people who are not in Lao PDR, who want to come to Lao PDR? What do you suggest to them? What do you recommend to them before they come here, before they come to Lao? Like look at the agreement that was signed, talk to the existing investor in Lao PDR who can tell you about the experience. What type of advice do you give them?
I said to them, please register your company in your country first. Lao has so many bilateral agreement on investment promotion and protection. And you can set up your company in some Asian country or in the RCEP, and you can ask for better investment protection in Laos. That's how I advise you. I never want them to come here first to incorporate the company. That's how I do it up to now. One thing that I would like to share with you that Madam Deborah would say that nobody dare to take action against government. But I did 3 times already, and I win in this country. I don't think that in other country you survive. All right.
Right. I'm turning to Amelia. Is there any question online? No, nothing. So opening up the floor to questions to our investors and our lawyer and our VP of LNCCI. Anyone would like to take the floor? Ask a question before Dinu raises his hand? Anyone? Lucas? Go ahead.
The question, or just to the question for confirmation, because it seems, because today we are talking about the RCEP agreement, and it seems that for goods trading we have a really move forward, because we can see that the rates, the tax rates is going down, etc. But in fact, especially for Laos, about investment, it doesn't change, I think, much. So it is just another place for all the regulations. So did you find anything new in this RCEP agreement for investment in Laos, or is still the same what we have in last year or 2 years ago? So is it anything new we can use through this agreement?
Go ahead.
I think this question should be go to government, right? But on the business view, okay, on the business view, the RCEP means now we demolish the local contents. Means we can get everyone in Laos, we can joint venture to do the production in Laos. You know, because now we can see our neighboring country, they will lose a lot of incentive. So there is a chance for us, just a neighbor. We get all the raw material in, we just do the locally for assembly, made in Laos, export. And under the scope of RCEP, not under the Form D or CO for Laos. CO for Laos, like Form D, you have to minimum stick requirement for 40%, the local content. Now, with the RCEP, no need. We just get everything from our neighboring country, use our railway to Vientiane, and then we distribute to the local for assembly. Then automatically you get your what they call it, country origin made in Laos. Then you distribute down to where? To Malaysia, to Singapore. Don't forget, Laos, we have electrics, green electric. Like I always say, it's a good for your product. They can earn the credit of an environmental. That is, we have to using this facility. And then for the Lao China Railway to Vientiane is by electric. So another credit point we have. So that is a best production at the moment in GM's country, Great Mekong Sub-region. Laos is a perfect location to produce a green product.
For me, some people asking me last few months, now we have like RCEP. Now we don't need any other document, RCEP, the word comprehensive is something, translate into Lao. It means very comprehensive, all right? And we need just one agreement that is, finished. But in reality, it's not like that. When you have RCEP, it's like framework agreement from now on. You need, if you are foreign investment or you are domestic investment in Laos, you want investment protection in other country, you still need, to know local law, all right? To get your investment protection, your investment promotion, you have to rely on the local law. And then if you want to protect against government action, you have to understand how to draft your contract. In Laos, it's very open that you have concession agreement. You can choose some provision of common law, from common law system, like the principle of breach of contract, compensation for the breach of contract, and using of future income or future cash flow as security for the project, and that kind of thing, even other document, legal document like model law of ASITRO, you have to look at many things to use RCEP as such. RCEP is not mean stand-alone agreement is like Bible and you use only this. That how you to do it. And this will be the beginning, and next challenge, and this will be even better. I hope that way.
Let me add one thing. What is the challenges for RCEP? For the government side, what we are worried on the implementation side, that's a comprehensive, but the level for implementation, inter-department, like MOIC and MPI is good connection, but how about MOIC? This a Ministry of Finance, with the custom, with the tax. So that is interlink is very important. Each of party should get a great job. I know for RCEP, the important people is who is custom. So the level of competency or knowledge is not knowledge, it's the level of implementation is very important. So if FDI, you want to easy to throw in with a good governance for MOIC, everything's good, but implementation is very important.
I just want to add to you, actually for me, I feel that, this kind of international or regional agreement make us a channel, like a tool that we can discuss with the government to change policy, to change existing legal framework, that work for all. If you don't have this kind of agreement, I'm a Lao person, I want to bring the issues to the government. I cannot do that. Yes.
I think you can, because I think through LNCCI, we have one platform, Lao Business Forum. Okay, every year we have dialogue with the Thidavanh department, directly with the Minister of MIC and Minister of Planning Investment. So there is good implementation. So I think you should join the LNCCI to have a more question.
Right, that's the beauty of having two very expert investment experts that I don't have to ask questions. They can send the question to each other and respond. So thank you for that. Before we stop the session and the dialogue, is there any more questions for our two experts before we have the concluding questions from Dinu? No? Last chance, really last chance this time. Yes, Executive Director. Wait, Dinu. Wait. Not yet. We have the Executive Director of Oscham Lao, please, and then Dinu.
Check. Gentlemen, thank you both for your insights. You have talked quite a lot about the positives of investing in Lao, but what would you like to see be improved, either through the RCEP or in general? What improvements would you like to see in the investment climate here?
I tried to ask the questions, but they would not answer.
Positive, so, right? We have to see negative. Of course, always they have positive and negative, right? It's how sincere you want to in the country. You come in, you hit and run, or you are opportunist, or you want to develop the country. It's a different things. Like us as a corporate company here, we want to develop what? Develop the human capital here. The resources, all is our company capital. Okay, one thing. Second thing, whenever investment we bring in, if we are on the positive side, you are the opportunist, you want to hit and run in Lao PDR, no way. Laos, yes, they are not left anyone behind. That is a very strong point. You can see from Botans all the way to Atapu, all the development almost is the same. Not like other countries I've seen. I travel 70 province of Laos and one special Sai Sombun. We can see every province, we are judged is the equal development for every province. And then, of course, the negative is you have to choose the right place to invest, the right people you talk. Okay, like Royal we have, yeah. Right? And then in the department also, you have to do the right people. Of course, I don't deny a lot of opportunities because it's a new country. Okay, so you have to have with a good comprehensive. You want to come into here, you have to get the right people. Like go to your chamber, become your member of chamber. You can sharing, right? That is the thing we have everything. Just the level of sincerity you want to invest in a new country. Of course, we come to a new country. First, you have to study is the local law, local culture. Once you can getting everything, then you can go in deep to your investment, to secure your investment.
Well, maybe I could turn the question back to Oscham Lao. Like, what are your members, or what are the potential investors from Australia coming to Laos telling you on the investment climate here, whether they want to invest or not, and if they don't want, why?
Well, as I think has been touched on, one of the biggest issues is the capacity of the local staff. And that is something that AusCham's working on. That's something that you guys are working on. It's something that the Australian government is working on, is very much trying to improve the capacity of local staff. And we are starting to see some progress in that area, but as always, it would be good to see some more progress. And the government is working on that as well. And I think as that sort of progresses and there's more skilled labour available, then that will lead to further foreign direct investment.
Dino, final questions?
I'm trying to be nice. So basically, I'm actually building on further what the thing is. There are a lot of positive reasons to come here, and yes, you're absolutely right, in terms of green energy, in terms of location, in terms of the train line, so on and so forth. There are a lot of positive reasons for Lao to be the next. I'm actually, this is a part of our motive. This is the part of LMS's motive, is we are actually targeting Laos to become like Singapore. That is our goal. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but we'll do it as long as we can, you know? But at the same time, there are also a lot of things which are holding us back. We are here to develop Laos. We are here, like you said, leave no one behind. That's the reason why we are here. If we were, we would not be here if this was not the motive. In terms of opportunist and all the stuff like that, I think is a kind of labeling. I don't think that's the right thing to say. Because see, the thing is, anywhere anybody goes, you're looking for opportunity. You know, you're not going over there and saying, like, I'm not looking for opportunity. I'm just sitting over here and I'll see what happens. What we are trying to nudge forward, because building on this, India was actually worse than Laos back in the 80s and 90s. Well, it was much worse. We had the license Raj, we had, you know, all these oligarchy families and all that running the country. It was way, way, way worse. But then in the 90s, when India opened up, and when a lot of foreign investment started coming in, and then educating, building the capacity of the local staff, building the capacity of the local people, learning how to use computers, learning how to use technology, learning how to work in the operating line. You go to India now, it's madness, sir. The way people think over there, they're thinking like 20, 30 years ahead. It's like, it's insane how people think over there. And of course, this happened over a period of 20 years. And this is exactly what we want to do in Laos. We can see that happening in Laos. We can already see that with the younger generation. When I came here 12 years ago, the kind of background and thoughts people of Vientiane had versus the kind of kids who are graduating now is phenomenal. It's amazing. So what we are looking at is how can the private sector further complement this, further be the catalyst of change in the positive direction. So like we're saying, okay, let's do manufacturing, let's do production. Yes, okay. And this is exactly what I was talking about, because I was talking to my investor friends. I'm saying, like, I want to do manufacturing in Laos. Yes, great, good idea. But your current investment laws make it very risky for us to put in $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million into Laos. So the question then comes in protection. So the second thing is also when it comes to flooding laws. So for example, some of the laws in RCEP says that there should not be any performance matrices when it comes to investors. But I say, no, you need to have performance matrices. You need to say if foreign businesses are coming into Laos, you need to guarantee employment. You need to guarantee some kind of revenue generation, because when I was in Tanzania, you had cobblers, you had bicycle repair shops, you had guys who had taken the entire tier 1 level of jobs and pushed out the locals. So what is now happening is work which was done by the locals are left unemployed. And then they get into unemployment problems, you get into drugs, you get into criminal offenses, you get into all the other kinds of stuff like that. You need to protect your own people first before letting the other people come in. But at the same time, you need to find the balance between bringing people in and protecting the local people. This is my point. So my question would be is, maybe building on the RCEP, what do you think could help build the capacity of Laos, encourage foreign investment to come into the country while ensuring that the Lao people are not being exploited and taken advantage of.
Oh, it's too long. Let me share with you. Okay, I get the example like today in Laos, in my national park, okay, easy. I have about, the company invest to my park is about 70 company. All is a quality manufacturing. It's a multinational company. It's a one example. Okay, if we see the law, we cannot change the law. We should respect the law. We can't do every country, right? So you see a lot of red tape. I don't think so because we had a model for success. You know, now all the teleconference in your office, you can see it's me in Lao. Okay, it's me in Sawanakhet. You see the hard disk for Hoya, me in Vientiane. You can see the lens for one of the brand French company is from Sawanakhet, from Laos. And then you see the aircraft accessory, it's from Sawanakhet. Okay, that is an example to say that investment is good to have it. Okay, it's talking about the human capital development. I'm very proud to say my national park is 98% Laotian. We not only create the job opportunity, we also create the job career. I can say in the salary in my parks, Laotian, we have a good manager, we have a good accountant, they receive 3,000 to 5,000 US. It's not the dream, it's a true, right? That is an example we have invest in Laos. We are not talking about nothing, we are talking about the reality we have. The export from my zone is about over 200 million a year. And then the transit good to my zone is 9.5 billion. So that is a figure to show you how the capacity for Laos. Okay, that I can show you. And then you can see we are continuous to develop the people. We are not net anything behind. Sawanakhet, okay, I just example for Sawanakhet because I'm there. We have a small capacity. We have about 8,000 students graduate from 5. We had to solve the problem for the job for 8,000 people. Okay, that we had to encourage the foreign in. But foreigner always, how I can get a skilled labor? Of course, you have to train them. What? You never give the opportunity to them to train it, and then you claim they don't have the skill. How the people born to be, right? They are not no knowledge, they are left of opportunity. Oh, I always remember, I talk to my investor, Laotian is not incompetent, it's left of opportunity.
I want to give one comment on this point. You have to look at the history of the country. We are very small in the middle, you know. Before 1989 or 1990, you know, we send people to study in Soviet Union, you know, Eastern European country. Many people going there, you know. After that, the Eastern Communist bloc collapsed. We have to start to send people to study English, all right? But before that, it was French, you know. Not only education, not only the language, but also the system of thinking mindset. You know, we have changed so a lot. You know, 10 years before, you know, we could not speak English like this in the workshop. Huh? Yes, but you know, the good thing about this, you know, from some of my friends, you know, it's not bad thing that we learn something from Eastern Europe or from China or from the West, you know. It's good for trade and investment. We gain a lot of knowledge and experience, and that can work with many people. I would say like that, you know. Like you say, you know, you don't look down at this thing. You know, right nowadays you can see that a lot of young people that are coming to different departments. We cannot deny that, you know, they get promotion, they get demotion, you know, current people shifting, that you have to talk with different people. Yes, we have to admit that, you know, it's changing too fast. Yes, thank you.
One more thing I want to add. Laos is a very young country. Our average age of 24 years old, more than 50%. That is a good opportunity to bring the investment here.
I will come. No worries. Huh? I will come. You convince me. You convince me. Right. Well, that's a beautiful conclusions. That come and invest in Lao PDR, right? We are here to welcome you, to train you, educate you. So thank you very much, Tichi Sivat, for joining this panel and this PPD. And let's have a round of applause also for our two speakers. Thank you. Right. So we are coming close to the end of the last PPD. So we have 5 PPD in 2 days. It's a lot. It's a lot of information for you to digest, for you to use. Hopefully you've learned something, you will remember something. You will also share what you have learned. You will also share the information we gave to you. I am not going to close this workshop because we'll have Jeremy and hopefully DG Saisana to do that for you. But I'd like to thank all the speakers and the panelists who have been on the podium for the last 2 days, and also for the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, who have helped us to prepare all these informations, the presentations, the materials. This has been a very long and intensive efforts for the past few weeks and few months. So thank you very much, MOIC, for your input, your support, your encouragements. I'd like also to thank the participants who have been online. They are invisible to you, but they were online. They were asking questions. They were making comments. So thank you to them for staying with us, and also for the team from MOIC and the Crown Plaza to manage the Zoom session in the background. So with this, I'd like to invite Mr. Jeremy Gross, the Director of the Capacity Building Program at ERIA, to take us through the final session. Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Sven. As Sven just mentioned, over the last 2 days, we've looked at 6 chapters of the 20-chapter RCEP agreement. This really has been just the tip of the iceberg, because it's not just about the number of chapters that we've been looking through, because we understand that there are so many layers of complexity to implement a free trade agreement. So whether it's the work that needs to be done to reform and change the local laws and regulations to be in line with the commitments of the agreement, whether it's sharing knowledge with the private sector so they understand the contents of the agreement, or of course ensuring that there are feedback loops and mechanisms to get input and comments from the private sector about how well the agreement is working. So this event was just a very small contribution to this, especially to the second and third components I mentioned. I have to say I've been really very impressed, as all my colleagues I've been working have, with the real level of interaction and discussions we've had, the number of questions we've had from the participants, whether here in the room or online. It shows that there's a real momentum and commitment amongst people to want to make this agreement work. So I think we can go away feeling very positive that amongst us there is a desire to go forward and make sure that this free trade agreement isn't just a bit of paper that sits in a drawer, and it can be used. And of course it would take time, as Deborah mentioned a couple of times yesterday. It's an agreement that we hope in the long run everyone will use. The benefits will come in at different times, but ultimately it will create a much more simplified way of trading within the region. So before I hand over to DG Saisana Sayokon, maybe if I can just repeat some of the thank yous. This is like the Oscar moment where you have to say lots of thank yous. So of course I would also very much like to thank the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, working with you to develop this 2-day event over the months. recent months. And of course, we were honored to have the minister here yesterday to open this event. In addition to the Director General's presence again today, also for the preparation and organizing, very thankful for the help and support that we've received from the team we've been working with, especially under Ms. Supapon. And in addition, my colleagues at ERIA, Amelia, who's been working very hard to make sure this work, all the arrangements and making sure the speakers were invited, and knew the logistics, the support we got from Miss Launi, based here, so thank you. Also, the incredible support from the man in the box behind me. Obviously, you can have the best speakers, but without being heard and understood, it would have been wasted. So thank you so much to Mr. Death for his effort, his incredible efforts, as well, of course, his colleagues who contributed to the other sessions. The speakers and the panelists, too many to name, but of course, we can't have a public-private dialogue without all your contributions. So it really has, as I said, we've been really, really amazed by the level of openness and willingness to talk and discuss the issues that are facing you and the challenges facing you. One speaker who's been on stage for every session, Deborah Elms, thank you for being able to participate in every dialogue and also participating as a panelist in some of the second sessions as well. We really appreciate learning from your wisdom and knowledge. Of course, without Sven Kallebo, it would have been a very different type of event. So really the most sincere thank you to Sven for creating and putting this event together. So, wouldn't want to forget, obviously we have a bouncing red Australian kangaroo there. So I don't think we have anyone from the Australian embassy here. Oh, sorry, yes, we do. So again, sincere thanks to the Government of Australia for the support we receive for the capacity building program. I think that is all the thank yous. I apologize in advance if I missed anyone out. But on that, it now gives me a great honor to invite DG Saisana Saikon to share some closing comments and to officially close this two-day workshop. DG Saisana.
Respected Mr. Jeremy Gross, Chief Director of Capacity Building from ERIA, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, following the appointment of the leaders of MOIC that allow me to join the closing session of the two-day seminar, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to know that the meeting to unpack RCEP for the last 2 days was successful. Was very successful and has acceptable outcomes. Like we had a lively, we anticipated a lively discussion and sharing kind of insight. In particular, the text of the RCEP agreement that related to trade in services, trade in goods, trade in investment, and the e-commerce, as well as trade facilitation. All of this, these are the 5 sessions or chapters that are most important in RCEP agreement. I highly believe that. Nevertheless, all of you here would recognize it and understood the basic information of RCEP agreements. And of course, I mean, the presentation made by our resource persons or by the speaker maybe too technical. I understand that maybe the level of understanding of the participant, you may understand some, and some of them you need to further understand so that you fully understand to the point that you will implement it, and that will bring in the benefits of the Lao PDR, in particular to the enterprises, or especially the SME. So this is important, I encourage that. And once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to Deborah Elms from ERIA, Economic Representative for East and East Asia, and Mr. Sven for being moderator for 2 days. I also like to thank you, the resource persons from the ministry concerned. Thank you very much for your presentation on the text, and your presentations provide information on the contents of the RCEP. I also like to thank you, ERIA's team, and all participants here that have made this 2-day seminar with successful outcome. I also like to thank you, everyone. I thank you, everyone, for attending. From the beginning to the end, by raising questions, by providing additional information on the straightforward manner. You then have made the seminar, with lively atmosphere. I believe that a lot of you still have a lot of questions in your mind. Not only in this meeting room, I think that online participants only have some questions as well. That's meaning our meeting is important, when there are a lot of questions. That's why I think this is the first time we organize the seminar of this kind. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to the people and the government of Australia for financial support to organize this seminar. I highly hope that the government of Australia will continue to provide support the organization of this kind of seminar in the different provinces nationally, to ensure that the knowledge will be distributed to local levels, to ensure that it will bring benefits to the business sector. Once again, thank you all for sharing your time to join us from the beginning to the end. Finally, I wish all of you, and especially Mr. Jeremy Gross and the expert who travel away from far away, I wish you safe trip home. And if you have time, please visit Lao PDR, especially the Vientiane capitals, and please promote Lao economy. There's a lot of products, I mean, quite interesting, I mean, you may take a look, you may have take a look at different shops, and you may visit, like temples or whatever, if you have a chance to. Once again, thank you very much. And I wish all of you here in this meeting room, I wish all of you good health and continue to success in your endeavor career. At this auspicious occasion, may I officially declare the closure of the seminar under the theme, Unpacking RCEP for Business Sector. From this moment on, thank you.